Hey, it's Plumber-Tom. Don't forget to check in the comments below for a link where you can find additional resources like practice tests and courses that you can take. Your support helps me to be able to create more great content. Thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to this presentation of International Mechanical Code. My name is Thomas, and in this presentation, we're looking at Chapter 3. Now, when you get into these international code books, you should probably pay a little bit of attention to the fact that right at the beginning, they have a little paragraph or so that says about this chapter. It's a great place to look for a brief summary of what is in this chapter. So let's see. What is in the International Mechanical Code, Chapter 3? If you don't already have your book, please grab your book, open it up to Chapter 3. I'm going to be teaching from the 2024 edition of this book. But yours may be an earlier edition and likely has very similar information. That's okay. Let's look at this. About this chapter. Chapter 3 contains broadly applicable requirements that are necessarily placed in an overarching general chapter that is specific to unique subject matter. General regulations include those related to installation, access, location, testing, structural, and clearances. So it's a catch-all, right? They're like, if it's just general information relating to the installation of mechanical systems, be they ductwork, hydronic systems, any of the systems that are related to mechanical, we've already discussed in the introduction and in Chapter 2 with definitions. We're just going to kind of lump it all in here together. And then further chapters will get more specific on topics, right? So let's see what they have here in General Regulations, Chapter 3. General Regulations 301.1, the scope. This chapter shall govern the approval and installation of all equipment and appliances that comprise parts of the building mechanical systems regulated by this code. So once again, that's what we're looking at, right? Now we get right into 301.2, and it talks about the International Energy Conservation Code. It states that heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems of all structures shall be designed to be efficient. Think through mechanical for a minute. There aren't very many mechanical systems that don't use some form of energy. Virtually all of them use electricity, and then some of them have applied, gas or other fuels. So when it comes to these, they want us to be efficient in the use of energy. Now there's a series here I'm going to just go through quickly. Identification is 301.3. You should have identification on the pipe and tubing. 301.4 talks about plastic pipe fittings and components. Gives certain standards for those. 301.5, third-party testing and certification. Similarly, the things that we install for mechanical systems should be third-party tested to make sure that we're providing higher quality stuff. They meet standards, right? 301.6, fuel gas appliances and equipment. Again, they have to meet certain approvals. And this section refers us over to the International Fuel Gas Code, saying, like, we're going to install mechanical systems, but this is very much in parallel with the International Fuel Gas Code, which has specific regulations on the gas side, the flue side, the appliance side, right? And 301.7, all these things we install have to be listed and labeled. Let's talk about listing and labeling for a minute. 301.8, labeling. There are some real specifics on the labeling side. It says labeling shall be in accordance with the procedure set forth in these sections. Take a look on any appliance and you're going to find a stamp or a seal or something that states, as we mentioned, third-party certification. Someone else came into that appliance manufacturer and looked at this and said, okay, yeah, this checks out. These are good appliances that you have created and manufactured. And you'll see that right on there. All of that involves testing. So they have to pass certain tests of quality, and those tests are to be recorded. That's what it's talking about there. Then that approved agency under inspection and identification are going to periodically perform inspections to make sure that the plant manufacturing these things is keeping those standards and staying up to the level that we need. Again, looking at efficiency and, more importantly, I would say, looking at safety Like, are these appliances, are these mechanical things that we're installing manufactured to a safety standard that, you know, we can install and maintain? Now, if we look specifically at the label information itself, 301.9 gives us a series of specifics, and you might highlight these in your book, but it says this stamp has to be permanently attached, permanently factory applied. It has a nameplate affixed to the appliance with legible lettering, and here are the things that they want: the manufacturer's name or trademark, the model number, the serial number, a seal or mark of the testing agency that we talked about, the BTU rating, the fuel type, minimum clearances, and you'll probably find more information than that on these, but this is some of the minimum stuff that should be listed on every single appliance. Now, where do you go to look for that? Most of the time on water heaters, it's right on the front. Here's an example of a Bradford White Corporation water heater stamp, right? Labeling information. It's a big sticker that they slap right on the front. It's a little bit cut out of this picture, but you can see the certifications, the third-party certifications that have come in and verified that this Bradford White water heater is going to meet standards. And then look what they've got. They've got the manufacturer, the manufacturer's address. We've got model, serial number. The capacity in gallons, not required, but very useful information. The BTU rating, the gas type, natural gas. Then we see some information about gas pressures. We also see minimum clearances from combustibles, all listed right here on the sticker, and so on. And you'll be able to find these on any appliance. Now, here's one of my pet peeves. One of the things I can't comprehend and that I totally hate. Furnace manufacturers and others, some other appliances, will put those stickers or stamps inside the appliance.
Hello, this is Steve at HVACPartShop.com. Today we're going to go over how to find our model and serial number on our furnace. Okay, so here we are in front of the furnace. First thing we got to do is find our data sticker. So we'll take off the top door of the furnace. This is going to be our burner compartment. This is where usually the data sticker is located.
So for a furnace, I have to go and take the thing apart. Now, you know, they might be like, it's just a panel on the front. You can just pop this and that and it'll come off. But sometimes I have to get tools out. And if I have to get my tools out to go and look at one of these, well, I think that's too much work.
A lot of times it'll be underneath the burner or on the left inside wall of the furnace. In this case, we'll get our flashlight as well so we can see what we're looking at. In this case, it is on the left inside wall of the furnace. Here's our data sticker here. This data sticker contains a lot of information that the technician will use.
I should be able to get into it easier than that. Like, I should be able to walk up to it just like a water heater and be like, what are you all about? What's your model and serial number, you know? And see that information. I really don't comprehend why they always stick those in the furnaces inside.
Also, right here is where our model and serial number is going to be. Okay, so it may be best if you take your installation manual and go ahead, now that we know where to find our model and serial number, is to go ahead and jot them down on the front side of your manual.
Now, how do I know that? Well, I do gas sizing, right? And anytime I do gas sizing, I have to go and find out all of the appliances that are involved in the building, and I have to go and look at them and get those BTU ratings if I'm going to make a change to the gas line. So I've dug into a lot of furnaces, and that's why I have this symbol now. Thing against that. Other side note when it comes to this one, that stamp on the front, it's just a sticker with all that information. It's kind of like the ID for that appliance. You can see at the bottom of this picture in the right corner, the sticker's peeling a little bit. Now, if you or anyone else peels that sticker off, you can almost see behind there's some lettering in there. If you peel it off, you immediately void the warranty. And I know that's weird, but that's the only way they can identify this water heater with its respective model, serial number, and all that information. If you take it off, you know, then they could say, well, that could have been from somewhere else. Who knows where that sticker came from? So caution there, don't peel those off. The only time you do that is if you're servicing a water heater and it's going to be replaced under manufacturer warranty. This is assuming you have approval from the manufacturer. They say, yes, we are going to replace this under warranty. You can go get a water heater. Well, rather than dragging that whole thing back and forth and into the supplier, just bring them the sticker and they can give you a new water heater. So that's kind of nice. Moving on, 301.10 talks about electrical, and it refers us over to the NFPA 70, saying that we have to meet certain safety standards and electrical standards. 301.11, wherever plumbing is interconnected or related to these mechanical systems, it says, hey, also keep in mind you need to go to the International Plumbing Code. See how these are all woven together, right? So it's saying, yeah, hey, go check out the International Plumbing Code. Now, 301.12 talks about fuel types and altitude, and the fact that any appliances that are installed have to be adjusted for those things. Namely, if you're going to put in a water heater in the middle of nowhere and they have a propane system, well, you better be putting in a water heater that's propane. Same with any of the appliances. They have to be that fuel type, but also rated for the altitude. And that has to do with orifices, and that's why you can see right here on this screen, these are orifices. They're just like a bushing that you can thread into the gas system. The orifice is what allows gas right out at the burn point, where it's going to hit the burner and spread out and be burned. And the rate at which that gas moves through or comes into the burner is really important. Now, natural gas is lighter than air. It has a small, lighter specific gravity. We get into that in the fuel gas code. Propane is heavier than air and a different specific gravity. So because of that, you can't just have propane flowing through a natural gas orifice or in a natural gas water heater or appliance and have the same kind of burn. It's going to behave differently. It's going to burn differently. It's going to damage the burner. It's going to damage the appliance. So it's really important to have a handle on this, right? To know when I'm installing an appliance, it has to be rated for that fuel. And if we go to the altitude, the orifice can also compensate for that. Where we have different atmospheric pressure than at sea level, we're going to need to let that gas through at a different rate so that it will burn properly. Really, any of the appliances that you buy, especially water heaters from a supplier, they're already adjusted for the altitude. But watch for that because it's right on the stickers and it's right on the box. Look on the outside of the box. It'll tell that it has been adjusted for the altitude. They don't even ship those water heaters that would be rated for sea level to our area because, that's dumb. But in the past, we used to have to swap out the orifices. And now they just come ready to roll. All right, quick example of this. You have the Navien tankless water heaters. They come with a conversion kit. Every single model has a conversion kit. This is what it looks like. It's got a couple stickers you put on the outside when you're done so that you can put the date, month, year, and you can sign off, yes, I adjusted this for the gas rating, for LP, basically, we're looking at. Most Naviens come natural gas, but then it has that conversion kit. Now, here's the thing. I made this mistake early on in my career of thinking that because this appliance, the Navien tankless, is capable of being installed at a natural gas or propane, that all I had to do was just tell the computer I'm using propane and it would already fix that. That's wrong. You got to get into the manufacturer's installation instructions, and it specifically shows you how to replace parts in there, the orifice, to take it from natural gas over to propane. So you have to do those steps. But the cool thing is the fact that you can do that. With any one of those natural gas Naviens, you just take it apart. It takes about 10 minutes. You put it back together with a different orifice and tell the computer you're on propane. Boom, you're ready to go. But again, that's just meeting code. It's important that you make sure you're functioning with the correct fuel type. 301.13 talks about vibration isolation. Sometimes mechanical equipment can be noisy with fans moving and other things. So you can install vibration isolation that keeps the noise from transferring into the building. It says they have to have an approved means of supplemental restraint. It's basically stating if we're going to use some vibration isolation, we still have to make sure that that appliance is secured in place. And there's different kits or vibration isolators that will secure the appliance and still keep that transfer of noise from happening. 301.14, repair. Any defective material or parts shall be replaced or repaired. Obviously, we don't want to have any defective things and leave it behind. 301.15 talks about wind resistance. Sometimes mechanical equipment is going to be on a roof or outdoors. So anytime mechanical equipment or something is outside, it's going to be subject to the full range of the elements, right? And we have to make sure that it's strong enough, secure enough, but not just going to blow away when we get a heavy wind. 301.16 flood hazard. It says appliances to be installed at or above the flood level. Now, what is this talking about? Here in Utah, there's really not a lot of areas that are classified as a flood hazard area, and they allow buildings there. There's just not a lot of water here. But if you get into a coastal region, that's anywhere by the ocean, like the sea can surge in, and there are areas that are just known as flood hazard area. Well, buildings can be built there, but anytime we know that it's possible for water to be at a certain point, there's a risk for flooding. We don't want to put our appliances in there, right? So they have the illustration here. If you have a basement or crawl space, no, let's get those appliances up above where they're not going to be like totally flooded out if something like that happens. 301.17, rodent proofing. It is not uncommon for us in the installation of mechanical systems to create sidewall penetrations. Anytime we're coming through a sidewall, we've got to be thinking, we just created an opening for rodents, and they can get through very tight spaces. So we want to make sure that those are all sealed up, and we're not leaving a welcome door for rodents to get in.
Ooh, I love people food. Yeah, people food's the best.
I say we move in with these people. Yeah.
Hey man, you got cake on your face. So do you.
301.18 talks about seismic resistance. And it says several times in there, look over at the International Building Code. Any of these seismic supports that are installed on mechanical systems would have to meet the International Building Code standards. Let's look at 302, protection of structure. First of all, it says that the building structure shall not be weakened by the installation of mechanical systems. Once again, don't be a hack. Don't get in there with your sawzall and chop out all kinds of wood or structure or whatever just to install this mechanical system. We have to respect that, work around that, and make sure that the building's going to stand after we've installed the system. And because of that, there are lots of details. Now, this is one of the sections in the 2024 that has been kind of redone, and there is one of the QR codes in there if you want to have a look at that. But rather than reprinting all of the standards about penetrations, cutting, notching, boring, the wood framing, all those things that are listed as to what we can and can't do, they've put that over in the International Building Code, and that is in section 2308.3. It spells out what we can do and can't do as far as, putting holes into studs or joists or other things like that. So,
Seems like there was a Plumber-Tom video about that or something.
And it's the exact same ones that we had in the International Plumbing Code. It used to be in the appendix in the 2024. They've, again, just referred us over to International Building Code, section 2308.3. 302.2 does talk about penetrations of the floor and ceiling assemblies and fire resistance rated assemblies. So as we're moving duct through or pipes through, we want to make sure we're not creating a greater potential for fire to spread through that building, through those holes that we create. So we just have to be conscious of that and meet those standards that they have. 302.3 goes over cutting, notching, and the boring of wood framing. 302.4 talks about the alterations to trusses and states that we shall not be cutting, drilling, notching, splicing, or in any other way altering trusses. Now that goes for roof trusses, but also floor trusses. The other thing that it states is that you want to make sure that those trusses can handle the weight of any of that additional HVAC equipment. 302.5 talks about the cutting, notching, and boring in steel frames. So we're talking about the cold form steel studs that you'll see in commercial buildings. And this time it refers us to the AISI standards or codes that give us the information as to what we can do to these studs to move our mechanical or piping systems through. Let's go on to 303, equipment and appliance locations. So this section, yeah, it's talking about where can you put these appliances. That's 303.1. 303.2 says don't put them in a hazardous location. Now, what exactly is a hazardous location? I'm going to have to go back to my definitions because I don't know. But guess what? The word is italicized. So if I look it up, here's the definition of a hazardous location. Hazardous location is any location considered to be a fire hazard for flammable vapors, dust, combustible fibers, or other highly combustible substances. The location is not necessarily categorized in the building code as a high hazard use group classification. So it's basically saying, like, if there's a higher chance of things catching on fire, then that's a hazard. And let's not put a flame producing appliance into that highly combustible location. Perfect. We go on to 303.3. Here are some specifically prohibited locations, places where you should not put an appliance, namely sleeping rooms, bathrooms, toilet rooms, storage closets, and surgical rooms. However, they do give some exceptions, namely direct vented appliances. Now, why is that? Why do we even have exceptions? Well, it's because the other appliances, I mean, we're talking about draft appliances. We're talking about, are you going to be burning up the breathable oxygen in that space in order for this appliance to function? And if so, let's not put them there because I'm sleeping in this room and I don't want to die. But these appliances, the exceptions, don't create that same level of risk. Direct vented appliances, they're going to be drawing air from somewhere else. Vented room heaters or fireplaces, they don't draw enough air to create a hazard in that way. Single wall mount unvented room heater for bedroom or bathroom, or a space opening into a bedroom or bathroom that has a sealed door or weather stripping. Putting in a door, so maybe this is my bedroom, but there's a closet here with my furnace in it, but it has a sealed door that is not going to affect the air that I'm breathing or leak any sort of exhaust gases into that space. 303.4 talks about protection from damage. Anytime that it's possible for an appliance or part of the mechanical system to be damaged by especially vehicles in a garage or something, we want to put up some protection, some concrete posts, something that's going to stop that vehicle from even being able to hit those mechanical systems. Here we have an example of a gas meter, but the same sort of things, cement columns, can be installed in a garage or anywhere that we're concerned that these could be damaged. 303.5 talks about indoor locations and states that the appliance should be rated for indoor installation if that's where we're going to put it, and the same thing would apply for outdoor in 303.6. If this appliance is going to be outside, consider rooftop units. Things like that, where it's like, this is going to be a functional heating appliance, and yet we're going to have it outside and servicing the air on the inside. Well, let's make sure that it's going to be able to withstand everything that's happening on the outside. Now, what if we put an appliance down in a crawl space? They call this pit location, somewhere down under in the ground or something. There are certain requirements for this. First of all, it has to have a 30-inch minimum workspace on the control side. That's the same with water heaters and all appliances, 30 by 30 workspace. This has to be at least 6 inches above wherever the bottom of that pit or ground is. So it can't be sitting on the ground. It's got to be raised up and have space underneath it. And it must be 12 inches away. There has to be a clearance all the way around of at least 12 inches. Now, if this whole thing is below that ground level, say we're really sinking it down into the ground, then it says where the depth exceeds 12 inches below the adjoining grade, the walls of the pit or excavation shall be lined with concrete or masonry, and such concrete or masonry shall extend not less than 4 inches above the adjoining grade. So we're down in this pit, we've dug this out for the appliance, but we don't want that dirt and everything caving into it. So if it's more than 12 inches, we have to put up cement walls or masonry, cinder block, something. And it's got to come up 4 inches above the ground so that can't cave in onto the appliance. As with anything else, we are not allowed to put mechanical systems into an elevator shaft. That's sacred space just for the elevator equipment and the elevator. And that brings us to the end of 303. We're going to stop here in this presentation, and we'll pick it up in 304 in the next presentation. Take a minute to consider the things we've talked about here so far in 301 to 303. Where have you seen this in your work? You know, when you're installing appliances, water heaters, or whatever? Is some of this connecting? You finding some application for this? While you're pondering those questions, I'll move on. And I'll see you in the next presentation, International Mechanical Code. We'll pick it up in 304.